The Piper had been drinking heavily. He hadn't just been watching the Rovers in Dunfermline. Instead, more than 200 years ago, he'd been enjoying himself at a fair in Lochgelly, but now, as he made the long walk back to Kirkcaldy, night was falling and the weather had turned. As he passed between Balwearie Castle and the Teal Burn, with the wind and the rain lashing his face, he couldn't help but be drawn to the cave at the foot of the Bell Crag. Legend long told that the cave had been a source of power for Sir Michael Scott of Balwearie, the great wizard of the north, and that tremendous gusts of air would issue from its mouth. First a breath from heaven, but then a blast from hell. Taking in the former would grant a man the ability to see the future, but anyone caught by the latter would be ensnared in a hypnotic trance. And that prospect alone was enough to ensure that the sober-minded would steer clear of the Bell Crag. But this night, battered by the storm and bolstered by the whisky, our Piper decided to take his chance. Hoisting the bagpipes under his arm and pulling the mouthpiece to his lips, he inhaled deeply, confident that his next inward breath would be sent to him by the Lord. And as the pipes skirled over the roar of the wind and he stepped to the mouth of the cave, his tune grew wilder, unearthly even, as if being conducted by the devil himself. And as the storm subsided and the sun rose over the Bell Crag, a farm labourer making his way to work caught a flash of tartan in the corner of his eye, and as he cautiously approached the mouth of the cave, he saw the Piper flat on the ground, the mouthpiece still to his lips, as though he'd blown his very last breath through those pipes. And now, on a stormy night, if you dare to venture out west from Kirkcaldy towards October, and you strain your ears over the howl of the gale, you'll still hear him piping. But what if our Piper had paused just a moment longer on the path, just long enough for hell's breath to subside before he stepped forwards? And instead he was granted that power to see the future, if he gazed through time to the end of the year of our Lord, 2025, and he was presented with a vision of the manager's office at Starks Park. Just who would he see sitting behind the desk? This is the Oh No 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 podcast, and for the first time since our inception, I think we're about to have a fairly lengthy discussion about whether or not the manager is the right man for the job. If we were spooked by Ayr last week, it was a full-on horror show at Dunfermline on Friday, with the Pars easing to a 2-0 win. I am Duncan Cameron, and joining me to pick through the bones of that defeat, first of all, it's Allan Douglas-Munn. How are you, Allan?
I'm good, mate. I'm glad we didn't record this yesterday morning. And just to clarify, we're doing this on Sunday morning. I'm glad we didn't do it on Saturday. I think the rage would have still been strong in me at that point. I've had time to cool down. Watching the highlights this morning probably got me a wee bit riled up again, to be honest. But yeah, looking forward, if that's the right phrase, to kind of going through it all and getting some stuff out of my system, I think.
Yeah, it's funny how your feelings kind of percolate over that little bit of time. I think a live Friday night reaction would have been fairly spicy.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah, interesting to hear what the general consensus is now. We've had a little bit of distance. We've also got Blair Hopcroft as well. How are you, Blair?
I'm raging. Unlike Allan, I have not percolated in the slightest. I am raging. I hate football. I hate Barry Robson. I hate Wraith Rovers. I hate everyone. I hate all of you for making me do this. I hate the listeners for tuning in. I hate everyone. I hate you all.
Yeah, not percolating, just on a rolling boil for 48 hours.
Pretty much. I was actually alright until I put the highlights on this morning. I was saying to you before the show as well, I was 3 sheets to the wind on Friday. I've only just realised it was Barney Stewart that scored the first goal, and I'm actually more annoyed now than I was on Friday. Raging.
And rounding us off for today, we've also got Scott Fleming as well. How are you, Scott?
Yeah, much like the rest of you, also not best pleased, to put it politely, with what went on Friday night, but I'm sure people are tuning in expecting to hear plenty of negativity, but also just what the hell is going on right now at the club.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I don't know what structure this podcast will take.
None.
A negative one.
That's basically. I think basically none. It's kind of all over the place in terms of like where things have fallen apart, really, because that's almost the point. I mean, is like 2 weeks ago, it kind of felt like I'm not playing very well, and I'm kind of annoyed that like he keeps doing the same stuff, but it's all kind of like, just like that kind of low level annoyance that you have all the time. Whereas from then to now, there has been like a full like sea change, and it feels like we've gone from the kind of usual suspect doom mongers, and we all know them, on whether they're on message boards or buses or they sit behind you in the stand. You know, the kind of people who are just like everything's shite all the time, and they have for a long time been like, Barry Robson's shite, this team's shite. And I'm like, you say that about everything and everybody. And then kind of on Friday night, it was almost genuinely, it seems like just about everybody has been like, actually, no, maybe that is the case. And I'm almost surprised by just how much like we've all been taken along by it. Because it's really difficult to try and find anybody who's prepared to kind of offer up a defence. And at some point we might need to try and at least someone's going to have to try and devil's advocate at least a bit of that, so that this doesn't just become sort of 4 parallel rants. But we'll see, because it might end up being that anyway. Right, let's at least have the illusion of structure and see where it takes us. So 3 changes from last week. Lewis Stevenson came in for Ewan Wilson. I don't imagine anybody was too het up about that. I think that was a fairly common consensus. We're looking for that change. Sean Byrne came in. Hey! But Paul McMillan went out. Oh, just like, can't always get what you want in the way that you want it. And then perhaps the most kind of unexpected, Darragh O'Connor handed his debut, having not seen really hiding our hair of him up till now, in place of Callum Fordyce, who dropped out. And absolutely no idea. I don't know if any of you have heard any kind of logic for that. I don't know if Barry Robson's offered any kind of explanation. But taking that one first of all, Allan, did that take you by surprise, Darragh O'Connor coming in?
Yeah, because you know what? You see him in the lineup, you think, Fordyce must be injured. But then he's on the bench. And I just didn't... I don't get it. I didn't get it at the time. I saw nothing during the 90 minutes to make me get it. Darragh O'Connor wasn't, worse than anyone else in any great way, really. But I didn't see anything from him to justify it either. And I just don't think Fordyce had done anything more than anyone else to make him deserve to be dropped. And it's maybe just a coincidence that you take Fordyce out, and I don't actually think anyone in the team won a header all day. I'm not saying him being in there would have helped Jack Hamilton win headers or anything. And it's maybe just me and my kind of negative mood at the moment kind of thinking that. But I don't understand. It's all just now. Again, just because of the way we're feeling, it's almost like Barry Robson's went, you want changes, do you? Well, here, have all the changes in the world as he starts shoveling donuts into our mouths.
That was almost exactly what I was just going to say there, Blair. Do you think that's felt like change for change's sake?
It certainly wasn't change for need, because I think Allan's been a wee bit, a little bit unfair, actually, in the sense that it's not just that he's not done a lot wrong. Fordyce has been one of our best players for the last 6 weeks. Without a shadow of a doubt, week in, week out, he has been brilliant for the last 5 or 6 weeks. So for him to miss out makes no sense. And it's not for me, it's not a slight on O'Connor at all. I actually thought O'Connor did fine. He didn't do anything really wrong. It was a shit fest from beginning to end. But I thought he was absolutely fine. And I've no issue whatsoever with him coming in. I've never actually said this out loud about a Wraith Rovers player before, but I hope Fordyce was injured, because if he wasn't, it makes zero sense whatsoever. It's getting to the stage of being a little bit insulting now. It's like I'm off already. I kind of feel like it's got to the stage where he thinks he's too clever for everybody, and he sees something that no one else sees. And I've kind of bided my time with it a lot, and I've said a few times, I don't watch a lot of his interviews. I don't find them particularly palatable, but I don't think that's an important part of the job, personally. I think it is now when you're shit. When you're doing all right, I don't really care what he says in the interviews. I don't give a monkeys. But when you lose a game like you do on Friday, you look for a little bit of hubris or a little bit of, do you know what, we got that wrong, it was really bad, we're going to work on this, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Change for change's sake. No plan at all that I can muster. And I don't actually think he's cleverer than everybody else. I think he's just too clever for his own good.
He's also probably the best defender we have at playing long balls out for the back. So if that's going to be his tactic, why not play him?
Yeah.
That's... Like, I don't know necessarily if I would go so far as to agree and say that Fordyce has been brilliant the last 5 or 6 weeks. I don't think really anybody has. I don't think the team has played well enough to say that. But what I will say is, if you'd asked me to, start from the top and work my way down, who is most deserving of not starting the next game, Callum Fordyce would have been like 8th or 9th on that list.
Yeah. Anyway.
And I think like probably the best thing about this Rovers side this season has been that defensive unit.
Yeah.
Really. Whether it's the 3 of them as a back 3, or whether it's Hanlon, Fordyce, and then Doherty with a left back, the 3 guys that have been effectively constant have been the best thing about it. And deciding to change that just seemed odd. And to your point, Allan, Fordyce is the one who does the stuff that ostensibly you'd think Barry Robson would want the most of. He's the one who plays the progressive passes and will hit it long if he needs to, even if that isn't a very good idea. Didn't make any sense to me either. And well, let's come back to being clever, because I want to make another point about that. But let's. Scott, absolutely, you can give me your thoughts on Darragh O'Connor, but also just take us into the midfield with that as well. So, as I said, we've all been calling for Sean Byrne, but rather than replacing one of his existing midfielders, Barry Robson, again, as he has done previously, chooses to keep Scott Brown and Ross Matthews in there alongside Sean Byrne. How much do you think that single decision contributed to the downfall on Friday?
I think for pretty much the majority of the fan base now, it's been obvious that we keep saying that the 2 of them can't play together, and so what Robson seems to have done is gone, right, well, if the 2 of them can't play together, I'll just put Byrne in the middle of the 2 of them and still play the 2 of them, and then they can do all his running, and he can sort of be the sort of guy that sits and protects the back 3, back 4, whatever formation we're playing, which is to a certain point. It worked down at Ayr, but I think it only worked down at Ayr purely to the fact they were playing against 2 kids of Celtic that had never really came up against 3 guys like it before. And I think that's exactly what Dunfermline were expecting, is if Byrne came into it, I genuinely think that Lennon thought he's not going to drop these 2 considering he keeps playing them. So he maybe thought he might bring Byrne in for experience or to protect the back line, and the fact that how poor we were the week before, that he might want protection in the middle of the park. So I think Lennon's probably planned for Byrne being in there alongside they 2, and has probably told likes of Hamilton and Gilmore, look, they 2 are going to go flying about trying to win the ball back or just be out of position. So they've ended up finding gaps in the midfield, which every other team has been finding all season long. And Byrne has basically been, you could see it so many times on the highlights as well, Byrne is chasing 1 or 2 players back because one of Matthews or Brown isn't in the position, which is where they're meant to be in that 3 in the midfield. But then when you play them 3, what you do is also your attack or your sort of counter-attack or whatever you want to say is nowhere near efficient enough, because you've got Easton probably trying what he can to try and create something out of nothing, which he does more often than not, but at the same time, him and Hamilton were feeding off, I say scraps, there was barely anything at all they were feeding off. And you're just going, well, somebody needs to create something. And to be fair, I know I'm jumping ahead here, to be fair to Scott Brown, again, whether that's Barry Robson that's told him or he's just went and gone off himself and went, Ken, what? Nah, I need to do this. Scott Brown for the first 15 minutes was actually really efficient in that second half, up and down constantly, sort of jumping forward in attacks. And at that point, I know he didn't mean to hit the bar with his skewed cross, but he was the one that was driving us forward and getting the link between the midfield to the front line. And at that point, I thought, right, well, maybe we can take off Matthews and bring on one of your attackers, whether it's McMullen or even Mullen or whoever, or Callum Smith, whatever one you want to do. But that means then that Brown is doing what you need to do in that midfield. But yeah, for some reason in the first half, especially, it wasn't working. And because we've been saying it for weeks, I do question, is it ever going to change now? Because like we keep saying week on week now, it needs to change. And the only change is, I'm just going to put Burn in the middle of them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on everything you've said there. I agree with it entirely. That piece about the start of the second half, there was a change which did work, and it lasted for 15 minutes because Lennon then makes a substitution and changes and kind of counters it all through. But when you start the game, I think this is honestly some of the most tactically illiterate, is that too strong? Probably.
No.
So you set out with that game, right? So you've got a back three. Fine, totally legitimate. All right. You've then got wing backs. We're going to talk a lot about wing backs.
Oh, yes.
But let's park that for now. One of them in particular, I'm afraid. You've then got Sean Byrne as a holding midfielder. We've all wanted that, right? So that's that in and of itself, not an issue. Now, personally, I would argue that a back three and a holding midfielder is already probably overkill. Before you even factor in that your wing backs are pretty conservative. Someone else could argue that's bordering on quite cowardly for a derby. But that's not the point I'm making. The point I want to make is, next up, so you've got your back three, you've then effectively got another three. If you take your wing backs and Byrne as like a line of three as well. In front of them, you then get two. So this is now, you're now into your attacking midfield. If you're drawing, stripes across the park, you've got your defence, three defenders. You've then got effectively your defensive midfield, which is your holding midfielder and your two wing backs. So we're now in attacking midfield, and you've got Scott Brown and you've got Ross Matthews. Neither of whom are attacking midfielders to trade. Dunfermline, to flip it around, they've got their defence, so they've got a back four. Then in their defensive midfield, they've got two midfielders. They've got Chris Hamilton and they've got Charlie Gilmore. Before they've started, we've marked ourselves. We've put our two attacking midfielders onto their toes. So to your point, Scott, I think Neil Lennon probably does deserve some credit for this, if he's seen it coming, and presumably he has done. But we are proactively putting our attacking outlets exactly where Neil Lennon would want them to be. Neil Lennon could not have handpicked a better Rovers midfield than Barry Robson did for his own purposes. Because it's, again, if you think about it the other way around, say we'd played a 4-2-3-1, right? We'd set out back four, you've then got Sean Byrne and Scott Brown, right, as the two in a 4-2-3-1. And then Dunfermline turned up and said, right, our attacking midfield is Charlie Gilmore and Chris Hamilton. You'd be delighted. You'd be absolutely cock-a-hoop. You'd be like, class, how are you ever going to create anything if that's your attacking midfield and you've sat them on top of Sean Byrne and Scott Brown? Like, this is a dream. That's what we did in reverse. And it's totally as I say, I think genuinely, I think it's totally. I think it's almost a dereliction of duty to watch that for 45 minutes and not change it. Because it was abundantly obvious that it wasn't going to work. Because how are you supposed to actually build anything? Because even if you think about, if you played that same formation, but your two attacking midfielders was a Sam Stanton and a Dylan Easton, for example. At least then, if you're Chris Hamilton and Charlie Gilmore, you're like, right, these two boys are both attacking players, first of all, and they've got kind of different strings to their bow. They've got different things that they can do. I'm going to have to be pretty careful here. But with the greatest of respect to them, both Scott Brown and Ross Matthews are not those kind of technical type players. They'll play passes and they'll run around loads. We know that. But all you've basically got to do is just stay goal side. And then Ross Matthews might receive a pass from Sean Byrne. He's probably going to have to give it back to Sean Byrne. He's not going to bring the ball in, turn his dip the shoulder, beat you, take it through. It's not going to happen. Certainly not with any kind of regularity. I thought that was insane. Just what an utterly daft way to set up a football team. And there are worlds in which that could work, and none of them are remotely applicable to this game. And just very briefly, what he did at the start of the second half was dropped Easton a little bit deeper and pushed Brown a little bit further forward, and that changed the dynamic. Because you then had almost staggered lines of attack, and it wasn't the case anymore that Gilmore and Hamilton could just sit and watch the game in front of them, because they now had to worry about Easton just behind, Brown just in front, but charging through. And that made a huge difference until, as I say, Neil Lennon watched that for 15 minutes and went, oh, I'm being, there's a tactical weakness here. I am going to change this. And put a substitute on, went to a back three, and then coasted the rest of the game. Blair. Just take the same subject, really. There's not a question. Yeah. Just feel free to expand on any of that.
I was going to say, so in the interest of making this a podcast rather than just a rant, I'm going to be sick in my mouth a little and try and play devil's advocate a little. But I'd like to lead with, I agree entirely with everything you said. That's my opening gambit. My only thought on it is the world in which it can work is, and it's not worked, but the world in which it can work is that you occupy your two defensive midfielders with those two attacking players, which frees up space for everybody else. So your wing backs can overlap and your wing backs can push on, and you can start getting crosses. And we didn't do any of that. So in terms of it being insane, I agree completely. In terms of that formation being the stupidest thing ever, it can work. I wouldn't have done it, but it can work. I actually disagree slightly in the reason that it worked for the first 15 minutes. I don't think was just because it was staggered. I think it was because it was the first time since Barry Robson's come in that he asked Scott Brown and Ross Matthews to do a different job. Mm-hmm. So what he's basically done is gone for the last 12 weeks, 11 weeks, whatever. Right, you two are both going to play all the midfield together. You're going to do the defensive bit. You're going to do the attacking bit. You're going to do the box-to-box bit. You're going to do everything, both of you. And they overlap so much. And I've spoken about this a lot. It's like, Sam Stanton, we used to joke about, he was like a midfield two, and you just had the other person around him. Do you know what I mean? With those two, it's like the two players together, you get maybe 1.5 players worth of jobs in the game. So he's gone from asking them to do everything to basically saying to them, right, boys, by the way, see that defensive bit? Shawnee's got you covered. Sean's going to come in and he's going to cover that whole bit for you. Don't even worry about that. You just do the other 2/3 of the game, but you're both going to still do it. And you're both going to overlap each other, and you're both going to do exactly the same job, and you're both going to cancel each other out. I don't think it's a stretch to say, weirdly, that might be the best game Scott Brown's had for us this season. And we were rotten. But he did more of the things he's good at. I know, I'm not saying he was good.
I think
it was
if you take that it all happened in that 15-minute spell.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But he was popping up. He was popping up in space. He was actually contributing to the game rather than him and Ross Matthews tripping over each other constantly all over the pitch. It was just one of those games where I think I was going to go with tactically naive. I think illiterate's quite good, actually. I like that. It was baffling. It makes no sense, because the only way that it could work is if you have either a centre half who steps out into the midfield to help out, but he was sat on the bench, or you have wing backs who maraud on.
Yeah.
More on that later. Or you have a striker who wins headers and is a target, and you put crosses into him. Nah, we'll just not bother doing any of that. We'll just run about the pitch and do very little of anything while holding the ball. The one bit that I want to get out the way really early is there's still this narrative that Barry Robson never changes anything. Barry Robson's so stubborn. I actually disagree entirely. If you look at the last 5-6 weeks, he has changed it a lot. But what he's shown in by changing it a lot is that he doesn't know how to fix it, and nothing that he tries works, and he's not very good at any of it. So actually the stubbornness is not the problem anymore. He was better when he was stubborn.
Yeah, that's quite a good point, actually. Because I mean, this is there's echoes of Ian Murray, as in like the
massively
dying days of Ian Murray, effectively.
Yeah,
when he was like, I don't know what to do with this anymore. It was effectively the tone of his final interview. It was like, I keep trying stuff, none of it's working. I can't believe there's still 2 full issues that we've not even remotely addressed yet in terms of where this all went wrong. We've probably just about covered the midfield. Still got wing backs to go. Also, still got the long balls to cover. Great.
Funny enough, the thing is, I was kind of going to jump in on the midfield as well in terms of what actually exacerbated the whole thing was the tactics that we played. So you've got Brown and you've got Byrne in there, who, when we did try and play the ball, it was really apparent that he was coming, he was collecting the ball from either the fullbacks, and he was looking for the passes, he was making himself available to get it back, he was doing all the things that we know and love Sean Byrne for. But what the problem we had is, we were playing the ball long. Jack Hamilton was never winning it, or if he did win it, it wasn't getting held up. But Brown and Matthews were bombing forward to support him, leaving big gaps in behind them. So when Chillico Mullen inevitably won the header and then it went to Hamilton, he had tons of space. Hamilton's then looking, going, oh, I've got Sean Byrne there. He's pretty good. Let's target their wing backs. So everyone was coming down wide. But then what happens is Sean Byrne has to kind of go over wide to support the wing back, leaving a big gap in the middle, and Brown and Matthews having to go back in time, leaving space. So we were just getting dragged all over the place, and it didn't. We set up with this formation, which, as you say, in the right situation can work, and then didn't actually employ a tactic that was anywhere close to utilising the formation we were playing. It was just baffling.
That's the word for it. Like, I don't know. In the simplest terms, I don't know what the plan was. Like, because you can point to aspects of it, and you can go, right, well, I can. Like, the simplest one is, right, we're going to play long balls for Jack Hamilton to win headers. Like, as a headline, that makes sense. I can see that. But none of the supporting points are in place to kind of make that work. And there's points of it that we talked about this last week, points of it that are just fundamentally contradict that. Like, if you're going to play long balls, if you're going to play direct, you need players up the park to take advantage of them. So why are you playing 5 defenders, 3 defensively minded midfielders? All you've then got is Hamilton and Easton to try and win those headers. And like, we've seen it with Paul McMillan, like, there is a world where you play a long ball, Jack Hamilton wins his header, it goes to Dylan Easton, and he takes a touch and finishes. That's not impossible. That's a perfectly probable thing that could happen. You don't even necessarily need Jack Hamilton involved if we look at the goal we scored at Morton. But it's not, like, statistically likely in the sense that even just in the back line, they've got 4 defenders. We've got Jack Hamilton and Dylan Easton. So you're already not likely to come out on top, you've got effectively a 50% chance, just on sheer bodies being nearby, of even just retaining possession. And then the next line, trying to then pick up on any potential second balls or a second phase of attack, is Ross Matthews and Scott Brown, who are being man-marked because of where we're choosing to play them, or your wing-backs who are far too deep anyway. It just didn't make any sense to me. I couldn't see the plan, couldn't see the sort of repeat strategy of, we'll do this and do this and do this, because these are things that we are good at and will lead to good outcomes. Just didn't seem to be there. And
it also felt at times during, especially the first half, before obviously Scott Brown has either been told or decided to do it himself in terms of bombing forward, it felt like we had 8 players and 2 players playing in 2 different halves of the football pitch. And Jack Hamilton and Easton are just going, yeah, we're over here. Yeah. And the other 8 are going, well, we've got a lot of players in front of us to try and get the ball to them, and we need to somehow thread it through them. And yeah, I think the word that I used on social media on Friday night was clueless. That's what the players looked. They looked clueless, because I think even them, for the first time in a long time, they were going, how are we meant to attack here? We've got nobody to... Well, Robson's probably told them, well, you've got Easton and Hamilton there, but at the same time, they had nobody that was even close to bridging that gap between they 2 and the other 8.
That's almost the problem, is it's Easton ends up bridging the gap. So Easton ends up dropping deeper and deeper and deeper to try and get the ball. So you end up with Jack Hamilton completely up on his Todd. And what we all know about Jack Hamilton is he's wonderful at hold-up play. Like, it's like he's never watched us play football before. It's actually baffling. I'm getting more annoyed. If you think about how is this possible?
The average passage of play when the Rovers had the ball, particularly that first half on Friday night, there's probably 2. One is we've got the ball either with the goalkeeper in the back line and it goes long and we lose it. Fair enough. That's simple. The other, and this feels to me like, I feel like in 45 minutes I saw this 100 times. The ball is either with the goalkeeper in the back line, it goes to Sean Byrne. Sean Byrne puts his foot in the ball, he looks left, he looks right, and he decides to go across, goes to Jordan Doherty. Doherty is stepping up to some degree. Rowe is in front of him on the right-hand side. Doherty plays a pass to Rowe. He's probably about in the halfway line. He's standing side on to the park. He puts his foot in the ball. He looks down the line. Somewhere in that entire half of football, Dylan Easton is there, but he's got 2 boys. There's very little chance he can get the ball to him. He looks to his midfield. He's got Scott Brown in front of him. Scott Brown's man-marked. Charlie Gilmore is standing there. So potentially he could give the ball to Brown. All Brown can do is give it back to him. He can give the ball to Doherty, but then you're going backwards. He can give the ball to Sean Byrne. So he looks at it and he goes, probably my best option here. I'll give the ball to Sean Byrne. Sean Byrne puts his foot in the ball. Looks left. Looks right. Might give the ball to Hanlon. Might give it to Stevenson. Might give it back to Rowe. But fundamentally, it's just going to be the same dynamic. The little bit of joy that we did get, as you just said, is actually as that move starts to develop, Easton drops all the way out the back line and effectively comes back to be a 5-yard pass for J. Rowe. Good. We've now managed to progress the ball 5 yards further this time. But now, the only guy who was 30 yards up the park is standing on the halfway line as well. So what you've got then is, even if, and we never actually did this at any point, but even if Rowe knocks the ball into Easton, Easton turns it round the corner, and Rowe is going full throttle, which he never did. But if he did, in theory, he's going full throttle, running into that space. He's still, his best case scenario is he can put a cross into the box for Hamilton, who's got 3 defenders. Like, there's no... You need more people further up the park. There's no... Listen, to some degree, this is a symptom of the players available to us. We don't really have that kind of natural number 10. You know, to give him some degree of credit, Barry Robson has clearly tried to use Kai Montague to do that recently. It hasn't really come off, but the intention is there. But this comes back to trying to be too clever. Like, just play to suit the players that you do have. instead of trying to do, he seems like, and again, I appreciate that this is me saying this, so these things seem obvious. Like, they seem obvious to me, and I don't have a great understanding of the game. But there's like 4 or 5 different things where it's like, I don't think like the average championship manager would do that. Now, either that's because you're cleverer than the average championship manager, you're seeing things that they don't see, and that's why you're doing it, or you're not as clever as you think you are, and recent results would suggest of those 2 possibilities, I've got a favourite, put it that way.
It's genuinely the first time for a long time where I think the majority of the fan base felt like they knew exactly every single thing that was going wrong and how to fix it, which is actually quite worrying. The fact that we've got, because to be fair, like I'm probably, the amount of times that I get told I'm talking nonsense, everybody has it at the football, but like I think everybody was in like unison at just how like obvious that to fix it, and yet it wasn't happening. And as you say, it might have looked harsh to some people, but if there was a sub needed to be made at half an hour, do it, because it's a derby game, and if anything, that's the game that you need to be sort of worrying most about losing out of the other 9 games, 9 teams that you play, or 8 teams. So I do think it was quite worrying that genuinely like 90% of people in the Rovers crowd watching the game on the TV, whatever, knew what the problem was and probably could all agree on how to fix it.
And you can still get beat. Like, there's nothing.
At least try.
I'm not saying that, like, if you let 90% of the Rovers fans pick the team would win. I'm pretty sure we wouldn't. But it is not. But I completely agree with you. It's that there are issues that, from the outside, it looks like he's willfully choosing not to address, and week after week after week, and that's where kind of the frustration builds. Sorry, Blair, you were going to come in there.
No, I was going to say, I actually feel like I'm trying to think of an analogy that kind of works, and the only thing I can think, I play this stupid game on, like, that Wordle, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a game on there called Pips, and you put little dominoes in.
I'm familiar with
And
Pips.
Sometimes, I play it all the time, right? I love it. But sometimes you get to a point where you've put so many in, and you're trying to change it, and actually the best thing you can do is strip everything out and start again. I feel like this team is held together with gaffer tape. It's like he's made so many changes and tried to fix so many things. I actually think it's a wee bit unfair to say that he's not trying to fix it. I genuinely think he is. I think he doesn't know how to. And I keep coming back to it. I've got the highlights. I'm glutton for punishment here. I've got the highlights on a loop in front of me. And I've just watched that chance that Ross Matthews has quite early on in the first half. And actually, it's the only point in the game where you go, that's what he's trying to do. That right there is what he's trying to do. It's the midfield kind of bombing through, quick touches, and it's Matthews that pops up on the edge of the box and has a go. The problem he's got is that it's the Matthews and Brown thing again. They're too similar. I think had he done exactly the same lineup, but put maybe Easton into the midfield or McMullen into the midfield and had a little bit more legs and a little bit more variety going on, you give them something to think about. There is actually a small window and a world where it might have paid off, because they were like, I mean, any Dunfermline fan that sat and watched that on Friday night, and thought, man, we're really good. I hate to break it to you, lads, we're rotten. So you might be, but on that evidence, you're not learning anything. For me, they were there to take on, I'm sorry, a midfield 2 of Gilmore and Hamilton. Come on, it's rotten. It's so bad. And oh man, how we've gone through that entire game without really doing anything to them, without laying a glove on them. It has to come back to the manager. It's just so abject.
That chance you're talking about as well. Is that not about the only time in the game that Rowe actually got forward and got involved as well?
It's not. It's not. No, steps back. Doherty goes.
Yeah, it's Doherty.
Good point. Actually,
it's Doherty overlaps.
Actually, I think I've got the same thing written in my notes as well. Actually, now that
I think Doherty went over the halfway line more than J. Rowe in the whole game.
He did, aye.
Let's talk about this fullback piece.
Here's another half out.
I've got it written here. Doherty more effective attacking than Rowe. It's actually in my own notes. I didn't read it.
Because that chance, the one that you've mentioned there, like, I mean, we're all over the place. We knew we would be. We've not actually got on to any of the events of the game yet, but let's talk about this one that was right on the stroke of half time, because I think it's totally emblematic. Is that the right word? Of this issue that we had in that first half, which is that, I mean, J. Rowe, I have been possibly his biggest supporter. Like, and I'd said at the time it was kind of largely based on kind of vibes rather than the kind of evidence of what we could actually see. Making it very difficult for me here, Jay. Like, that. So I think the kindest word I can think to describe that first half performance in particular is meek. I could think of unkinder words, but meek, I think, just kind of summed it up in the sense of everything he did was like safety first. And that's not always a bad thing. That's a lot of the time, that's not a bad thing. But, and this is, as I say,
it's not great for a wing back.
It's not great for a wing back, exactly. The way that we're set up, particularly on Friday night, the wing backs were basically going to have to be 70% of the attacking force that we had. Because, as we've just said, the midfield is totally nullified. And I'm not putting all of this entirely on J. Rowe. I mean, Lewis Stevens is on the other side as well. But again, I think because of the way we're set up, it's not best. You're not giving them the best chance of success, effectively, because they don't have options. Because really what you're looking at is when the ball goes to J. Rowe out on that right-hand side, basically, in order to actually have that progress into a sort of coherent attack with a high likelihood of success, he basically needs to beat Robbie Fraser in a one-on-one every single time. Because he doesn't have the passes that you should have. He doesn't really have anyone on the scene. So before Easton feels like he has to come up and help him, you really need J. Rowe to be like, you know, basically, as I say, beating Robbie Fraser all ends up and then running into clean air, which is a big ask. And as I say, Lewis Stevenson on the other side is basically the same, and we didn't really see that either. But to the point, that it was right on the stroke of half time. Jordan Doherty runs past J. Rowe to make that kind of thing happen. Now, J. Rowe's not completely... Basically, as soon as Jordan does that, he goes into the middle, and he's the one who actually plays the pass to Matthews. He's not entirely hopeless, but it kind of shows it can be done, almost. And just... as I say, I'm more putting this on the shoulders of the manager than I am either of the wing-backs, but that was not a good performance. Blair, if I've been the kind of chairperson of the J. Rowe fan club, I think you've been outside throwing eggs at our windows. What did you make of that performance?
I thought he was rotten. I thought he was absolutely rotten. I'm really sorry. Like, he comes across as a lovely guy and all the rest of it. Like, I didn't want to be having a go at him. He's not very good at his job. I'm really sorry. He's no cutting it. And actually, I've just watched it again. J. Rowe doesn't make the pass to Matthews. J. Rowe's at right back. It's Easton and Brown end up playing this little kind of 1-2, and then Easton slips in Matthews. J. Rowe and Doherty effectively swap places, and J. Rowe's standing 30 yards behind the play, watching it happen.
We might be talking about different chances. The one where Matthews shoots from about 20 yards.
I'm sorry. No, sorry. I'm talking about the one with the... It was just after the goal.
The kind of interplay. Right, no, sorry. I'm talking on right on half time.
Which was also Doherty overlapping, though. To be fair, I don't see anything at the moment that makes me think that he's an option. So if we can go back a little bit, we've had a kind of a series of right backs. I mean, we had he who shall not be named, who kind of disappeared out the club, and ever since then we've had he who shall not be remembered, James Brown, who came in and.
I was saying you're going to do this for all of them. This nickname.
I know. I've got another one. Oh, actually, no. Yeah. And then we had He Who Shall Not Be Liked, which was Kieran Freeman. And everybody just decided, for whatever reason...
He shall not be played.
He shall not be played. And then we had He Who Shall Not Be Seen, which was George Gitau, who basically got injured in the first week of training. And then we've got He Who Shall Not Be a Right Wing Back, which is Josh Mullen. And actually, we go through all of it, and I know I'm a big fan of him. Josh Mullen's still the best right wing back we've got. We have gone out and actively sought to replace a player that we have been playing out of position. So last season, Josh Mullen played right wing back because we had a system, and give Robson his dues, it worked. He sorted us out and he got us into the position we needed to be, and he deserves credit for that. You can't take that away. He absolutely did. And the fact that we nearly made the playoffs was honestly outlandish when he first came in. The fact that we missed out on the last day on a point because Partick scraped their way through it made no sense to anybody. So Josh Mullen plays right wing back, and he plays in a system where effectively Josh Mullen doesn't quite have the legs that he used to have or whatever, and he's not the kind of all-action, marauding right winger anymore. So let's use him to his strengths. He crosses the ball really well. So he'll cross from deep, he'll get the ball, he will occasionally hit the byline, but more often than not, he's going to be crossing from deep. So you get to the summer and you go, right, I mean, no offence, Josh, that's not your position, that's not where we think we can best use you, we need to find a replacement. So he goes out and he finds one. And to give him his credit, when you look at the highlight reels and everything that he did, he looked like the perfect replacement. And he's come in, and he's clearly, I don't know if fashionable is the right word, but he's clearly a player that the fans at least wanted to like. He's done nothing more than Kieran Freeman did. The only difference is he scored a couple of headers from crosses or a couple of headers from corners. And I'm sorry, he did one of them against Elgin. Actually, two of them against Elgin. Like, is that his level? Is that basically what we figured out? Is that he's a level above where he needs to be, because he offers us zero, absolutely nothing. And for me, he makes the midfield thing worse. So to go back, I'm off now, Duncan. You started this. You go back to your original point about your back three, and then your next line of attack is your defensive midfielder and your wing backs. And I don't think it has to be, but yeah, I get that point. And then your next line is your two midfielders, and then you've got your two forwards in front of it. If those two wing backs, this is where the whole thing could work, as shit as the idea of the midfield three is. If those two wing backs bomb on, or put crosses in, or are attacking in any way, shape or form, it can work. But it's like a perfect storm of everything not working. And for me, he's the first person that has to come out of that team. Absolutely, first and foremost.
I completely agree with you. I think the if you had a heat map of where our wing backs were, they needed to be 15 yards further forward as a kind of an average position. So your starting point. And I think that, like, a lot of the time, you kind of need to force your wing backs to be on the run. And I think this is where actually Sean Byrne is quite good at this. Which is, when he puts his foot on the ball and he looks left and he looks right, he'll not just play the ball at your feet, he'll play the ball 20 yards in front of you so that you have to be on the move and you have to be going. But we never did that. We never had, on either side, the
Stevenson can do it, though. This is the thing. I know it's not his natural position. I know he's shown it already. He can do that wing back thing.
Scored against Duncan.
Without wanting to pile on Rowe as well. What then happened later in the first half is both Byrne and Doherty just stopped passing to him. So then the defensive players on the left side and for Dunfermline are thinking, well, they're not passing to him and he's not going to bomb on. So we didn't actually need to worry about him. We can just pretend he's not there and we've got a spare man and then mark someone else. And that actually shuts down more options because J-Row basically became not an option. It was like, well, we were playing with 10 men. Basically.
I said that about, Gilmore and Hamilton couldn't have asked for an easier evening, effectively. Same with Robbie Fraser at left back. Because he realises fairly early on, all I need to do, again, is just stay goal side. Like, yes, I'm leaving 30 yards of open space behind me, but this laddie's not going to run into it. So as long as I can just face him up, and then as the half goes on, he starts to realise, hang on a second, the centre half is actually fairly keen to get by me. That might cause an issue. But I think this is one where I don't think anybody comes out of it well. It's not like I think the manager's picking the wrong player in the wrong system. That lets the player off the hook. I think it's a bad system and a bad strategy, and the player is also executing it badly. Like, nobody comes out of that well. Because you could play a wing back like that, where he doesn't have to be hitting the byline if you've got the midfield to do it, so that you can then you're just using him as almost like a pivot point out wide. So Burns got the ball, he plays it out to the wing back, who then plays it into an attacking midfielder who'll receive the ball on the turn. I think you can imagine Sam Stanton receiving that pass. The ball goes out to basically the halfway line, it's immediately played in, and he's receiving it on the half turn, 30 yards from goal. And as he turns, he's then... Actually, if you think about the goal that Richard Chin scored against Arbroath, Easton receives the ball on the half turn, and he turns and he's got runners and he's got space. But we never had that. There was never any point where we received that pass, because anything we got close to it, it was Scott Brown or Ross Matthews receiving the ball with their backs to goal, a man behind them, and limited options to pass to. So we never really, with a couple of very slight exceptions, never really had that progression. And it just comes back to the same thing, where you go, well, okay, if we don't really have the players to progress the ball through the midfield, then you've got two other options. Either you progress it down the flanks, well, the wing-backs we were using were too conservative, either by design or by nature of how they play the game. So that wasn't going to happen either. Or you go direct, at which point you say, well, then why have we got so many players in our own half? Totally. Like,
it's like he's picked a system that doesn't necessarily work, and then he's filled it full of players who can't play that system.
Yeah. It's like this.
Interestingly enough, that Blair touched on the point of all the stuff that J-Row wasn't doing it correctly. The last time that I can remember, we played this formation with most of the personnel. A couple of difference with McMullen not being there and J-Row wasn't in it, was away to Ayr. And I did reference that game earlier because this formation was exactly how we played down there with Easton. Instead of Hamilton, it was actually Paul McMullen that was playing up front with him. And I know we scored right at the start of that game, and then it maybe made it a lot easier for us to defend. But Josh Mullen was playing right wing back that day. And he was playing the role of, well, I need to be at times Marcel in terms of a right winger or a right mid or whatever you want to say. And then he knows that he's got Jordan Doherty behind him if he does get caught out.
And Sean Byrne inside him.
Yeah, exactly. And then the three in midfield, as I said, I think mainly worked down at Ayr because of the lack of experience of the two Celtic youth players. But
possibly, yeah.
I still think if you play Josh Mullen on Friday night in that right wing spot, or right wing back spot, I think then potentially, well, I don't think it gets any worse, put it that way, but I think it gets a bit better and it gives you more option down there. And he is willing to play sort of more football, get forward more, because naturally he's not a defender. So that's where your wing backs, and I know that, Duncan, you've done it to death for about 2 months now on wing backs, but like I get why, because it honestly is now getting to the point of the wing backs are not playing the role that they're meant to be playing. But I do agree that Lewis Stevenson has shown in the past, and I still wouldn't say that. I don't think we've got anybody else that could play a left wing back role that's any better than Lewis Stevenson right now. So I would actually still go with him. but I think there is somebody a bit better for the right wing back spot, and that's where I'm at. That it now needs to be, for now, until we go out and actually, if we're going to keep Robson and we're going to keep this sort of formation every now and again, you need to go and get a wing back that's better than J. Rowe. Otherwise, you have to play Josh Mullen.
I just don't think we've got the wing backs to do it. I think it's a crazy thing to try and repeatedly do. Like, such a weird thing to kind of hang your hat on. But
hence why we always say 4-2-3-1, and we've managed. I think we've managed to reel Allan into it now. Like I'm instantly every time we're in the group chat, he's also now saying 4-2-3-1.
But I'm with you now because we're so bad that
just
you can clear the decks. Everybody should get them on it.
If you've got wing backs who are two of your very best players, it can be brilliant. If you think back to when we had Kieran McDonald and Regan Tumulty, and it was first of all, it's great to watch as well.
Yeah,
but just like, it's really effective. It's really difficult to counteract as well, because at a certain point,
their fullbacks back all the time. Then
exactly, and depending on how you do it, depending on who's in your midfield, you can actually end up tying up their wingers as well, because they're never sure who to go with. But we don't pose any of that problem, and it's just, I mean.
Barry Robson's job might be going a lot easier or better if Regan Tumley and Kieran McDonald were in there, that sort of these players in this system. I think actually it probably, as you say, it probably does work.
I think so.
I think Regan Tumley was available for transfer towards the end of last season because his club were going to shit. Imagine.
That's what you need. Is you need someone who is prepared to go and take these chances and prepared to go and actually run at his fullback. Because sometimes the threat is enough.
Yep.
Like Robbie Fraser, you don't even have to necessarily beat him every time, but the fact he knows you might keeps him further back and keeps him in check and means you've got more space that we just never had at any point. And
see, just very quickly to go back to the back four versus the back five thing. Last season, the back three was necessary because we didn't have a right back. And so your option was basically playing, well, I mean, we did in Jordan Doherty, but we didn't necessarily have much of a back four either because Fordyce was still out injured. So he was kind of forced into it to an extent in the sense that he didn't have a natural back four that could play week in, week out. He does now. He absolutely does now. And so I think you're right. You're either wedded to it because you don't have a natural fullback, or because you have really good wing backs. And at the moment, there's very little argument for sticking to the back three. And I'm a big fan of the back three, because I think when it works well, people think of it as being really defensive. And I actually think a back three with a holding midfielder can be really attacking, because it just frees everybody else up. You've basically got a really narrow back four, and everybody else go and play football, go and enjoy yourselves. But at the moment, we're too negative. Everything's too negative. So he needs to clear the decks and start again.
Yeah.
Or leave.
Yeah. So let's actually cover. We've not got to the goal yet. It happened.
19, the goal's in 19 minutes and we've been going an hour.
It happened 19 minutes in. We've gone an hour. So this will surprise you, but the goal has given me pause for another run. Not even specifically related to the goal. We'll still have to cover the goal itself. But in that first half, the Rovers had 4 set pieces. I think it was 3 free kicks and a corner that were in like kind of dangerous positions. You know what I mean? Like chances to put the ball in the box. 4 of them, first half. First one was really early on. Easton kind of mishits it effectively. Doesn't get the connection he wants. The first man, who's not even in the box, clears it away. The second one, a free kick on the other side. Easton and Stevenson do a clever little, we've worked on this in training, little 1-2, and the ball goes in, and Jack Hamilton's offside. That was good. The whole point of the stupid little thing is to catch the defence cold, and we caught ourselves cold. The third one is put into the box successfully this time, but somebody's put on a jersey, So there's a free kick given against us. And then right on half-time, we got a corner from that Matthews shot where Docherty's gone the overlap. And this one, again, training ground, we've worked on this. Short corner between Easton and Stevenson, and the ball is curled out of play before it gets into the box. 4 set pieces, none of them made it into the box legally. First half, Dunfermline, 1 corner, 1 goal. Now, I'm not saying it's as simple as, get it in the box and you'll score 4 goals. But we are so toothless elsewhere. Like, we haven't scored any goals recently other than 3 in that 45 minutes against Arbroath. What we do have is loads of big, tall laddies. J-Rowe presumably is keeping his place ahead of Josh Mullen, primarily on how good he is in the air. He gets first contacts. Let's talk about first contacts in a second. That, when you look at, right, how is this Rovers side going to score goals? Well, it's probably not through going direct, because we've only got one laddie who can win headers and he's not got any pals. Can't really progress the ball through the midfield because we've only got loads of defensive midfielders and they're all marked anyway, and we can't get the ball up the park through our wing backs because they're all stopping at the halfway line. Well, maybe actually then we'll launch some set pieces into the box, and we can't get them into the box. So that didn't work very well. That you could probably tell, doing my dinger at half time with that 4th corner when he just put it out of play. Like, that was the only chance we had. And we had 4 of them, and we didn't do anything with any of them. And listen, we've gone pretty strong on the manager so far. We're going to keep on doing that. But that, maybe the little quick 2 passes, maybe the gaffer's telling him to do that, I don't know. But there does need to be some responsibility there. Don't pull jerseys when we've got the one attacking set piece we might actually do something with. If we're going to do the little quick free kick, watch the line, because that's your only job at that point. Worry about winning the header when it comes in. Keep yourself onside, first of all.
Yeah,
and
I
don't
stood
kick
up
the
at
ball
one
out
point
the bloody park.
In that first half, exactly that, and I shouted, "Kin basics." That's exactly what it was. Basics. It's the stuff you learn when you're 10-year-old. Watch the line. Keep your hands down. The ref's looking for it. It's just abject. Can I just one thing, Duncan? I don't want to correct you because a really good rant, but it's Easton that hits the shot. That's why I've been so confused up until now. The shot that gives us the corner, it's Easton, not Matthews.
Is it? Right, sorry.
It is. No, it's fine. But everything else you said, I agree, 100%. Tick, tick, tick.
Yeah,
nonsense.
You're right. The one thing you can actually train for on the training pitch.
Yeah,
you can train for just about every defensive strategy against you. You can practice crossing. You can do all of that. You can train on the training pitch. There's certain things that happen in a game you can't train for it. It just happens. It's a natural flow of the game. Yeah. Set pieces is not one of them. There's no excuse for being that bad at them.
And the manager literally says that 3 or 4 times in his interview as well, so he definitely agrees.
On the goal itself, Barry Robson in his interview says he's disappointed because we got the first contact. He's going to be more disappointed when he watches it back because we didn't.
Or the second, or the third.
Yeah. Chillico Mullen gets above Paul Hanlon, nods it down. Barney Stewart takes a good first touch and a good second touch, to be fair, kind of flicking the ball over his own shoulder and into the goal. Josh Ray is somewhat distracted by the bounce of the ball, like a terrier chasing a piece of shiny paper in the wind, as he tries to go round Barney Stewart to try and get the ball. Allan, is that am I being unfair to Josh Ray there? Do you have to just credit the striker for that?
Absolutely not. Josh Ray is 100% at fault there. Where the hell's he going? Where does he think the ball's going? I've seen some people questioning Doherty because undoubtedly Stewart should have been Doherty's man. But you watch on there's one angle on the replay where you see Doherty goes to go, sees that Josh Ray is bombing out and nowhere and thinks, Christ, I need to fall back and kind of cover behind him. And then when Stewart does what he does, very cleverly, well done to him, Jordan Doherty can't get to it without sticking his hand up. If Josh Ray has stayed back near his line, Josh Ray just goes, "Oh, cheers, man." Like, although I don't think Stewart tries that if Josh Ray's not standing like a yard in front of him to his right. I just think, Josh Ray's just completely sold the jersey, to use a typical kind of football cliche there. But definitely I'm blaming Josh Ray on that one.
Scott, do you agree with that?
Shaking, so I guess I'm not.
For the most part, I do think Ray's like most to blame for it. I was at the time, and even still, I understand that the way that Allan's kind of dissected it as well. Like, I do still think that you've got to put a bit of blame onto Doherty for allowing Barney Stewart to get just such a free sort of doddle. It basically was over to where the ball lands to him. But ultimately, Josh Ray makes it an easier sort of... It's not an easy finish at the same time because he's not even looking at the goal for a start. But it's more the fact that it's easier because the goalie's right behind him. And so once he lifts it over them, unless somebody pulls out a magnificent diving header out of nowhere to clear it, it's going in. Unless you handball it, as Allan said as well. But yeah, I would... If I was to put like a sort of figure on it, I would probably go 80-20 towards Josh Ray over Doherty, but I still think that Doherty has to be tighter to Barney Stewart because I thought he let him go far too easily towards the ball.
Yeah, I accept, to be fair, I accept that he should have been on Stewart in the first place and not giving him so much room, but yeah.
Blair, for you?
I don't know, I think that's a wee bit harsh on Josh Ray. He'll definitely want it back. Like, I don't think he's covered himself in glory. I think if you take it the other way around and you work your way back, I think it's a really, really good finish. So he deserves a lot of credit for that. I'm not convinced it's a really good touch. I'm not convinced it's what he's trying to do. I think it comes at him quite quick and it kicks up off his knee. And he's basically forced him to the point where that's the only thing he can do is hook it over his shoulder. I don't think he's got a clue where the goalie is. I don't think he has a clue where any of the defenders are. I genuinely think he's just... It's like Allan kind of saying about there's things you can train for and there's things that just happen in the moment. And for me, that everything from the point where he touches the ball onwards is just stuff that happens in the moment. You can't kind of account for it. But he shouldn't be in the box. He shouldn't be in the 6-yard box with nobody on him. So I think Doherty deserves a fair share of the blame there. Ray, I think if Ray stays where he is and the ball goes in anyway, the one criticism he'll get is, what you stand on your line for? It's in your 6-yard box. You should be going out and claiming it. So he's damned if he does and he's damned if he doesn't. For me, to use a kind of something that you say a lot, Duncan, that I quite like, is if you ran that 50 times, how many times would it result in a goal? I'm not convinced with that personnel in that moment that 50 times out of 50 that's a goal. So I'm not convinced it's entirely at blame, if that makes sense. I think there's a good portion of the time where that ends up just going out for a corner or going out for a throw-in or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Or Stewart misses it altogether and Ray comes out and collects it and goes,
exactly. Like it's
Stewart's first touch. And I know what you mean with the fact that it kind of pops up off his knee. I think, given the ball ends up in the goal, I think you have to kind of give him the credit for it.
Completely.
Because he's sort of on the move, almost. You know, he's not standing still and the ball comes down, it pops up and he puts it over his shoulder. He's coming across, and as it comes off his knee, I think basically what he does, he keeps the ball within his own orbit, effectively. He gives himself the chance to hook it over his shoulder. And Ray's
There's
biggest
no way he wants
sin,
it that high, though.
No, but then I think he then deserves the credit for kind of improvising effectively. But I think what Ray gets drawn into sort of a world where Barney Stewart doesn't get a touch at all.
Yeah.
Stewart comes across Ray and takes the ball with him, and that's what Ray just has not factored on. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I wouldn't be looking to kind of crucify anybody for this. I think this is the kind of goal you score when you put a decent cross in, put it in a decent corner. Again, not to labour my own point from previously, but like, it's not... that's not a training ground move. Put it that way.
No.
Like, It's a case of you swing it over the back post, you get a big laddie to head it down, and you see what happens. And if it happens to fall to one of your strikers, he scores a good goal. Like, the other thing, certainly we don't need to go back to what we've already discussed, but one thing to circle back to what you were saying about the game down at Ayr, Scott, I think if we had scored a goal like that 20 minutes in, potentially it could be a very different game. Because if we were 1-0 up, as we were down at Ayr, that team we're playing is incredibly stuffy.
Yeah.
Dunfermline, I think, would struggle to kind of break that team down because it's 3 centre-halves, 2 wing-backs who don't want to go anywhere, and 3 defensively minded midfielders. But the counterpoint of that, which is what happened, as soon as we went a goal down, it was a killer. We might as well not have been in the rest of the first half. It just passed by where there's a couple of wee kind of half chances, but there was no, coherent strategy where it looked like we were actually going to, do anything.
But it's these 2-0s. Like, so you look at last week's, the 2-0 last Saturday was the only one for me that's totally different from the rest. So we lose a goal, and my money was kind of out of nothing. It was relatively good, but we switched off. We got punished for it. It is what it is. And then you lose a really stupid penalty and you're 2-0 down before you know it. Every other 2-0 we've had has been you lose a stupid goal and then you're chasing the game and you leave yourself wide open at the back and you've not got any kind of coherent strategy for scoring a goal. You're just trying really to do something and you get caught. And Friday night was a bit like that. I just think to go back to the goal itself, I think goalkeeping's it's a game of averages. You've got to try and guess what the boy's going to do because ultimately you're just there to try and kind of stop it. And when you're in the line of the post and the ball's coming across, then I would have thought 9 times out of 10, most strikers would take a touch into the box rather than away. And I think that's what Ray's looking for. Ray kind of moves to his right, expecting the ball to pop up on his right, and it pops up on his left and he's got absolutely no chance. But like you say, you put the ball in the box and, you buy a ticket, you might win the raffle.
Yeah, let's just go to the second goal straight away, and we'll take the goals together. Before we get into the actual mechanics of the goal, just to touch on something you said there, Blair, about Barry Robson says in this one, by the time we'd conceded this goal, we'd gone to the 4-2-4, and you get caught on the break, which is broadly true, I suppose. The point I would make with that is not the first time he said that recently. We lost one against Johnston, we lost one against Ross County, doing the same thing. Haven't scored any doing that. So, just not necessarily a great track record. That's 3 times that we've done it to try and chase the game, and all 3 times, not only have we not scored, we have conceded. Yeah. It's not brilliant, put it that way.
No.
This
not
goal
what is though.
No. This goal is abysmal.
It's so bad.
Just shite, man. Like, because you get so when you think about the other 2 I just mentioned there, you get caught on the break. So St Johnstone, I think, was it our set piece, and they break away and eventually they recycle and they score. County, I can't remember if it was a set piece or not, but certainly they were breaking through and Ronan Hale scores. This one involves one of their centre-halves running across the field for 50 yards.
Yep.
How much more time do you want to set yourself? So, it's scrappy on the left-hand side. I mean, you
Not caught on the break either, by the way.
No.
Half the team in our own half.
The ball, Lewis Stevenson, I think it is, he kind of hammers the ball at Scott Brown. But, fine. I'm not really blaming either of them. That's just kind of, it's not good. But, it's not, they're not doing it on their goal line, put it that way. You kind of need to be able to not always have the ball on the halfway line. Jellicoe Mullen then just hairs off, didn't really hair off, ambles off. Not even goalwards, just laterally, just goes across the park. And Sean Byrne is kind of with him, but I think his mindset is almost like, well, this guy's a centre-half and he's not going towards goal. I can shepherd this effectively. Like, reinforcements will arrive. They do, in the form of Josh Mullen, who just, with the greatest will in the world, I think just ties himself in knots. Can't decide whether he wants to take the space or take the man, and does both, resulting in doing neither. So the first thing he does is he steps, rather than going to Robbie Fraser, he goes into the space, and then as soon as the pass is played, decides to engage Robbie Fraser, who just steps around them. Really, there's not an awful lot to it. And then
you do this one 50 times, you score 50 times.
Yeah. The cross comes in.
I mean,
it's a brilliant ball in, but it comes down within 4 yards of Josh's goal line. And Chris, I mean, like, pick all the strikers in the league you want. Chris Kane would be pretty high up that list of guys who will bundle that ball into the goal. Ray does well to some degree, I suppose, to get in front of the first one, but ultimately it makes absolutely hee-haw difference. As the ball goes into the back of the net. Again, let's play the blame game. Allan, who are you pointing fingers at first and foremost?
It's kind of hard to pin it down to one. I absolutely accept your kind of defence of Sean Byrne because it's Chilico Mullen and he's going nowhere. The attempt to stop Robbie Fraser at kind of out in our right back position was piss poor. Like, he got through them so easily. I think that's where the goal comes from. The cross is brilliant, but then you've got neither Hanlon or Stevenson are marking Chris Kane. It's Chris Kane. Surely someone marks him. But I mean, it's Ray should potentially come out and just wipe him out. You know, best case scenario, you put him out for another 6 months as well because he's made of plastic. So, you know, that's good. I genuinely on this one, it's collective failure. The team just sold the jersey. Like, it just, I'm struggling to put it on one person. I suspect some others may manage, but it was just, I mean, it was a really good cross. It was one of those that's really hard to defend. You know, if it's in behind Hanlon and he tries to attack it, there's a chance of an OG. Stevenson's nowhere. He's outside the goal, not marking anyone. His position is not great on it, to be honest. But yeah, I'm struggling to put it on one person.
Blair, would you agree with that?
Nope.
Excellent. Didn't think so.
Yeah. So I'm going to go a little bit out of left field here. Josh Mullen, 100% at fault. Not 100% actually. He is at fault. He's not alone in that. But yeah, not great. But it's far enough away from goal that I don't know. Like, I don't think it's a cardinal sin, but he definitely is skipped past way too easily. I do think I agree with you in terms of Sean Byrne. I think if you've got a centre half coming out, Chilico and Mullins only want to go in one direction, which is forward. Byrne stops that, pushes him out wide left, gives us enough time to get back, gives us enough time to sort out. I actually think Byrne does the right thing, because realistically, the only choice Sean Byrne has there is either an absolute worldie of a tackle or a foul, which just gives them another opportunity to stick the ball in the box. So I think he does the right thing. I think Mullen, definitely deserves a bit of stick. I don't think Josh Ray does. I think it's impossible I know the ball's in the 6-yard box, but it's low and it's dipping and it's curving away from him. You're going to have to be one hell of a goalkeeper to come out
also
and
a decent
claim
bit
that.
of pace on the ball.
Yeah, to come out, claim that and hold it, I think that's a lot. Lewis Stevenson, for me, 90% of the blame on this one. Just stand your ground, mate. Like, I don't think he sees him. I think is actually part of the problem. I don't think he realises that Chris Kane's checked his run and is now kind of coming inside him. He's going to shepherd the ball out of play. Yeah. He almost can't do anything with the ball, Stevenson, unless he's confident enough that he can volley it with his right foot, basically back where the ball came from. So if he goes with his left foot, which we know he's predominantly going to use, he's basically knocking the ball into the net. So he's effectively got to shepherd the ball out of play. But he has to shepherd the ball from the man, which means blocking the run. And he just, for me, he sells the space and Chris Kane bundles it home. I do think Ray does actually pretty well to stop the first one. and is relatively unlucky in that sense. But poor, really poor goal to lose. And like I say, you do that 100 times, we concede 100 times. It was abject.
Yeah, very much not a calibre of chance that we created at any point.
Nah.
In terms of the actually, no, sorry, Scott, anything you want to add on the goal?
Not too much, to be fair. I think the guys have kind of covered the most part of it. I did at the time once, because once it had all happened, I went back to watch the sort of replay of it, because I was watching the game on BBC iPlayer. I was able to just skip back to see who was at fault and whatever. I do think that it is a mixture of Mullen and Stevenson together that is the sort of the downfall of it. I was at one point screaming for Josh Mullen to just actually take the foul with Robbie Fraser, because I get it. Blair said that it was going to then allow them to put another ball in the box, but at the end of the day, then I feel more at ease that we should be able to then sort ourselves out and defend that, rather than on the move, a ball coming flying across and then one of their strikers coming in and potentially scoring. I just feel that we've got more control over that. And I think Mullen, whether he got booked or not for the challenge or not, I just thought he had to take the challenge there and then, rather than just what he done, which is what you said, is he was in mixed minds of going, do I stay back off him or do I go to him? And he went and did neither and just stayed in 50% and just allowed them to just stroll round them. And then, as we've already said, Robbie Fraser puts in a good ball, pace on it, perfect for a striker to be kind of in the 6-yard box running onto it. And yeah, Stevenson's not really picked him up, even though he has looked to see where he is to begin with and just not looked back again to see where he is the second time. And then, yeah, that's how the ball ends up in the back of the net. I almost at first, when I looked at it, thought, is this another situation of we've asked Lewis Stevenson, mind first game in charge with Robson, with George Oakley? I was like, have we actually asked Stevenson to mark somebody that's well taller than him? But at the same time, it's not a header that he's won or anything like that. So you then go, well, nah, actually, it's not quite the same. But that was what it first stood out to me. It was like, we've actually got Stevenson on the tall guy again.
It's good movement. I think it's the thing. It's, he's a very good striker. It's that if you pause the point when Chillico Mullen releases the ball to Fraser out on that, and you pause it, you'd think, class. Like, there's no danger here. Like,
we're all right.
Yeah, Byrne is in the right place. Mullen is in the right place. You get two boys out in the left hand side. They're going to have to just do what we do, which is turn around and pass the ball back somewhere. And Robbie Fraser just goes, boop, boop, two touches, whoop, whoop, see you later. And he's away, and he puts a great ball in, and it's a good finish. Stevenson, I think, is you're right, doesn't do brilliantly, but it's also a very difficult task. There's only so many places and things he can do to stop that ball going in, whereas Chris Kane really just needs to get in the way of it. And he still takes up 2 bites. But as I say, the Rovers never really did anything to that degree. No. Scott Brown, you mentioned this earlier, Scott has an effort, I'm going to call it that the keeper tips onto the bar. I don't know what to make of this, actually. Did
he actually get fingertips there? I thought it just hit the bar.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, it does.
No, he got
it's really good.
Back again. I just genuinely thought it hit the bar.
I'm not sure who he's crossing to, though. This is the thing.
Because that's the thing, there's nobody there from it to ball into it. So that's what makes me, like, when you see it from behind the goals, especially, there is nobody for it to aim at. So I think he's just thought, I've got no option here. The goalie's a wee bit off his line. I'll try it.
That's my thought as well, because if he's trying to cross it, it's a terrible decision. And he's mishit it wildly. So I've given him the benefit of the doubt and say that he did mean that. And he comes very, very close. But again, it's hardly a gold star for the
he's still had room to go into as well, so he could have taken more time if there was someone there for him to cross it into. He takes it really early, which is, again, what makes me think he's actually tried it.
There's a couple other wee kind of half chances, not to pick on somebody else, but we've picked on quite a lot of people. I doubt it feels like it would almost be it would almost be unfair to not. Probably the one time that we do actually manage to get a full back / wing back. I'm not entirely sure what system we're in at this point, but the best that we did do, to whatever degree that is, was when Easton was kind of dropping off a little bit in the second half. This one, he's kind of in a bit of pocket space, knocks the ball into the channel for Lewis Stevenson, and Lewis Stevenson sort of stands up the cross for Jack Hamilton, and well, it doesn't go to goal. We'll put it that way.
No. So it's actually a really good defensive header.
That's exactly what I said at the time. He's done really well to just make sure there's absolutely no danger in that whatsoever.
To get it away from goal. Yeah.
I think to varying degrees, we've tried to be pretty kind to Jack Hamilton as much as we can.
Yeah.
Barry Robson still making quite a big deal of the fact that he's coming back off a long injury, and that's true, obviously. But I think this was his 5th or 6th start. Blair, we'll stick with you. I mean, first of all, where does that chance rank? Is that got to be scoring from there, or is it just that needs to do better than he does? And, I mean, so he scored once, basically. Are you prepared to offer a defence of Jack Hamilton, or are we starting to have to really ask questions of him instead?
I don't even know anymore, honestly. It just feels like there's no other option. I think that's the worst bit, is if you take him out, who do you put in? You've got a teenager for Rangers who's completely unproven at this level, and I'm still not convinced about, based on watching him warm up. I don't know. I honestly don't know what we do at this point. It's like, I keep saying, like, taking him in and out of the team is no doing him any good. He needs a run of games. He's now had a run of games. Like, talking about Jack Hamilton coming back from a long-term injury is like talking about the fact we're still feeling the effects of COVID. Like, when did we stop talking about it?
It's a universal truth at a certain point.
Yeah, we're past it. He's played enough games now. He's had 90 minutes at least once already. He's getting 60, 70 minutes a game anyway. Actually, did he get 90 minutes on Friday night? He did, didn't he? Didn't he come off? No, he did. He came off for Smith. And that's the thing. Smith needs time to get back and get fit. He feels like he might be a bit more of an option in that regard. Obviously, Vonnie's out at the moment, potentially at least a few weeks away. Chin is months away now at this point. I'm not sure there's a huge amount of alternatives for him to use. So in that regard, I do feel a bit for the manager. I know that we had a lengthy discussion in the group chat about whose fault it is, and the fact that, you know, the manager had the summer to bring in a striker. I'm still not convinced that there's an awful lot available, so I'm still not prepared to pin that on him. Tony Watt, by the way, is looking like an incredible bit of business from Partick Thistle. I don't know. The header, I don't even know if you can do better. It's not the best of crosses, to be fair. I think standing up, it's really high. Really high. There's not a lot you can do to get that back on goal. You could do better than he did, probably. The one that really annoyed me is after it, the one that comes over his right shoulder.
Yeah.
He's kind of on the move, and you're thinking, bury it. And he's thinking, I'm going to take a touch.
Is that the one he slide tackles the boy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, if I've learned one thing this season, it's that Jack Hamilton's first touch is a bit like a punch in the face. And so banking on your first touch was not the option I would have taken. The ball was screaming out to get buried at that point. And he takes it on his knee and then tries to... I don't even know what he tries to do.
Yeah. Looking at that back, I think it's to take it with his head, it's a tougher chance than I thought it was at the time. At the time, I was like, what on earth are you doing? I think it's probably a case of, if he tries to head at that, there's maybe like a 30% chance that it goes well, you know, because it's tricky. He's on the move, he's coming over his shoulder. Try to do what he does, 0% chance. That's just...
Not at all.
He's got two boys with him. He probably actually gets about as good a first touch as he could possibly expect. Mm-hmm. And he still has to try and slide tackle the boy to get the ball back.
That's the thing, he takes his first touch into the defender.
Just to go back to his actual header that he puts wide. One thing that really frustrates me with Jack Hamilton, because I think if he was able to do this, he would actually be scoring a lot more goals than he is that he's more than often than not does he mistime his jump all the time, almost. And I think that's all that came down to. He was already coming down as he's heading in the ball, and you've just went, why? Like, it was one of the most easiest crosses to read that Stevenson, when he was going to do it, and yet he still mistimed his jump. And I was just like, that's one thing that you need Jack Hamilton. It's one thing I think Barry Robson's needed and wanted out of Jack Hamilton for weeks. And I get that he's taking time to get back up to game speed and stuff, but he's now probably 2 or 3 games into that now that he's had, I think, 4 or 5 sort of 90 minutes in a row, or close to 90 minutes in a row. And he just seems to miss time every jump that he goes up for, I feel. And I know that Robbie keeps going on about he's not a target man, but at the same time,
what is he?
He's a guy that's 6 foot plus, has to be winning headers, and also has to be timing his jump better. It's something that I think you could easily work on as well. Whether he does and he just seems to never improve, I don't know. I just feel like he constantly mistimes his jumps, and that's why he always pits head. I mean, there was one game last season, he had about 5 headers in one game, and he scored one of them, and it was the only one he timed correctly.
It's tough because he seems like a really nice guy, and we all want him to do well, largely because he's a Rovers player. And if he's doing well, that means we're doing well. And I think a big part of it comes from we were all probably quite excited when we signed him, and we thought, hey, we've got a guy here that a lot of championship clubs would have wanted to sign, And there's been little flashes of things from him. I still think he probably plays better as part of a front two. He's not going to get that with us, largely because there's nobody for him to play up front with anyway. And it's getting. I've probably been one of his biggest advocates. I've always kind of harped back to, he had that wee spell where he looked good. I think I'm kind of getting to where most others are now. The guy in front of me on Friday actually said Jack Hamilton needs to take up golf because he's not a footballer. I think that's maybe a wee bit harsh, but I could understand why someone would say that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think to sort of expand this point a little bit, I think it plays into a degree of the frustration with Barry Robson, because we've seen Jack Hamilton be better than this. So one of the problems that Robson's got, I think, is that we know a lot of these players. We've been watching them for a long time. Scott Brown's probably the best example, where Scott Brown looks like half the player he did 18 months ago, right? Now, either Scott Brown has gotten much worse as a football player in the last 18 months, or he's working under a different manager who's not using him effectively. And as an isolated case, you could definitely make that for any number of players. But when you're seeing it across the board, I think this is where, as I say, people get frustrated, because we know, and it's not just the players who've played for us for a long time, you're also looking at guys who we just know are good players at this level, like Paul McMillan. Like, we're not getting enough out of him. And that's across the board. Like, because we've seen Jack Hamilton lead the line in a team that finished second in this division. We've seen Ross Matthews and Scott Brown at different times, not at the same time, Barry, pay attention, be integral members of a midfield that finished second in this division. Like, we've got the players, but we're not getting the best out of them. And it, to go right back to the start, feels like, Greg said this yesterday, it's the I think falsely attributed to Einstein, according to him, Einstein. And clearly I've not got a clue. That, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. Like, that just seems to be like the Barry Robson way. We don't seem to be playing at anybody's strengths, though. because it's not to say we're not. I don't mean like we try the exact same thing overall. I mean in like 7 different ways. We're trying small aspects of the same things.
Yeah, completely.
It's not that it's the same formation, the same 11
Matthews
players.
and Brown together.
Exactly. It's like,
the style that we're playing in is the same, but we're playing different formations and different personnel. But
See,
the actual how we get front back seems to be the same.
Well, because
this is the bit that's annoying me.
The same in the same game. I don't think the defenders are playing the same style as the forwards are. Like,
which is more worrying. He's trying different things, and
100%.
none of it works.
You know, they say like a camel is a horse designed by committee. Like, I think this Rovers team looks like it's been designed by committee. It's like the fullbacks go away the fullbacks go away with one coach, and the midfielders go away with another one, and they didn't talk to one another, and they just come up right. We're going to do this. Right, oh cool. Right, we're going to do this, and we'll by about 3:15 we'll find out what the other guys are doing, and then try and knit it all together. Like, there doesn't seem to be that. Again, talked about it before, but like a coherent strategy that runs through the side. The clearest example that I can give is the one I gave last time, which is if you're playing wing backs, it's so that you can use them to progress the ball. So that you don't have to go long to your forwards. And we're doing both. And all we're doing by playing a back 3, I mean, worse on Friday, playing a back 3 and 3 midfielders and wing backs, is that when we then go direct, there's nobody there to win the ball. So even if you get the first contact, you then, as we've just said, you need Jack Hamilton to win the ball, hold it up in a manner that he's not often brilliant at. And even if all of that happens, he's only got Dylan Easton, who's got 2 men nearby. Like, it doesn't, there's no through line of, like, for all the faults that you might possibly want to pick with Barry Robson, the back end of last season, there was a through line. There was a clear, we are going to run like mad, we're going to just nick the ball off you, we're going to knock it in behind, and Finlay Pollock's fast as anything, he's going to run on. And it wasn't always perfect, but you could at least go, right, fine, that seems like that's the plan. Even at the very start of this season, same thing still applied. You saw it in the group stages of that League Cup. We were robbing the ball off people left and right. Last derby, Easton's right. That's disappeared. There's none of that. Like, even if we wanted to go and try a high press on Friday night, which we didn't have the players to do it anyway. So what's the plan? The plan seems to have stopped being about, we're going to run at these points, we're going to wait for these, you can hear the kind of coaching language coming out where they're like, you wait for your triggers and then you go and you press. Transitions, exactly. All this kind of stuff. It feels like we've abandoned that, and now all we're doing is just running about.
The high press has completely vanished in the last month. I kind of think at any point that when Dunfermline's defence had the ball that we engaged them. We didn't, because there was no point, because you've only got 2 boys there to do it, and there's 4 defenders. Well, we've been going a long time. I'm not even remotely close to being finished. One final point on the kind of game itself, and then we'll try and start wrapping things up. Josh Ray, incredibly fortunate not to lose a third goal here. If that had been a third, I think folk would have just completely lost.
Yeah, that is one of these things where he almost doesn't deserve the credit for keeping it out. Like, the error is so egregious, and the fact that it springs closer to him than it does to the striker is just pure luck. Like, and obviously, like, it does get nobody's going to remember that in 2 months' time. But I mean, like, I don't know. Maybe that's just a thing in isolation that means absolutely nothing, but it felt symptomatic of Friday night as a whole.
Yeah.
Apart from the fact it didn't go in the goal.
As an individual thing that happened, it perfectly summed up the game. We did it to ourselves.
Yeah. Spot on. That is exactly it.
And also, you can even say it as a perfectly decent championship footballer not playing at the level you would expect him to. Again, is kind of where he was with it.
So after the game, Allan, Barry Robson did a couple of interviews, the one with the BBC, the one with Wraith TV as well. His general vibe, I would suggest, was a lot of get them back on the training ground, keep on working, which I suppose is better than not doing that. Also a bit of we controlled the game. Dunfermline sat in and asked us to break them down. To which I would suggest we might have tried answering. But more broadly, Allan, are you happy with that as a reflection of the game? Did we control elements? Did Dunfermline sit in?
No, I would argue completely the opposite. That was a perfect demonstration of them controlling the game. They were like, we're in control of this, we're ahead, you've offered nothing against us, come at us, guys. The stuff about, working on it on the training pitch, it's set pieces. You've been working with these guys since January. Darragh O'Connor's the only one who was in that kind of group and J-Ro, of course, but like most of these guys have been there with you since January. Have you not been working on that for the last 9 months? Like, is it just something you've thought of? Maybe we should work on defending corners? I don't... It's for someone to come out and say, oh, that's something we need to do on the training pitch when it's something they should have been doing already for 9 months. And you know what? Probably have been doing. I don't doubt that. It's just... I mean, I don't know what he's meant to say. You're probably damned if you do, damned if you don't in this situation. But still, that's his... To go all Roy Keane in it, that's his job.
Yeah.
I'd honestly... I think most of us would be happier if he'd just come out and said, you know what? We were rotten today. Nothing we tried worked. The players let themselves down. I've let themselves down. We've all let the fans down. We need to be better. We'll come back, try harder. It wouldn't mean anything other than it would actually sum up how we're all feeling. And instead, what you get is us just going, picking holes in it, like the whole, we got first contact on that corner. He's not seen a replay of it, so it's maybe from his view, he sees a deflection of Hanlon's shoulder and thinks Hanlon has got it and it's unlucky. Whereas we're watching it going, bloody nonsense. Just yet another example of him talking pish in his interviews. Because we're already angry anyway, so we're looking for reasons to be more angry. There's not much he could have said that would have stopped us being angry, but he could have just come out and been bloody honest, and it maybe would have stopped us being angrier. Maybe not. But...
So there's something, I think it was Sean McGuigan who said this on a Terrace podcast a wee while ago. Basically, as far as he's concerned, and I agree with him, what you want in a post-match interview, as a kind of minimum, is for the manager to reflect the same game that you've just watched. You want it to be identifiable, that when he says, yeah, I know, what do you make of that today, Barry? And he says X, Y, Z, you go, well, aye, that is at least representative of the game of football I have just watched. I don't think that's the case. Like, and the thing for me, we talked about this last week. Greg had a fairly lengthy answer on it that I completely agreed with. No accountability. There's no. And now, to be fair, most of this I really genuinely think just comes down to not being a very good communicator in this specific realm, right? I'm not saying at all that it's, when it comes to communicating with his players, that's a totally different world to giving an interview. As an interviewee, he's not a good communicator. He doesn't formulate his thoughts very well. He tends to kind of repeat himself, and what he repeats generally is quite banal. We'll get back to the training ground. Players need to take more responsibility. It's like platitudes, really. He doesn't make an attempt to talk you through the game that you've just seen, which is fine. A lot of that's the managers do. They just effectively stonewall the thing and want to get out of there. But yes, what would help massively would any degree of, I get that wrong. Either specifically to say, listen, we tried. Like, I would like a manager who comes out and says, right, one of the things we did today was we left Callum Fordyce out and opted for Darragh O'Connor. The reason I did that is because of this and this, which Darragh offers us, was actually, whereas Callum's good at this and that, I preferred this for today. However, it didn't work because Dunfermline did X, Y, Z. Never going to get that.
No.
Davy Martindale's probably just about the only manager who does anything approaching that I'm aware of in Scotland at the moment. There's maybe a couple others. Barry Robson's certainly never going to do that. But the slightest degree of had a game plan today and it didn't work. Because we know that's true, because you get beat. So you're not revealing state secrets. Like, whatever you tried didn't work. But, like, you're the manager.
Yeah.
Like, last week, he came out and he said, 6 or 7 players underperformed, and you can't carry that. And that's true, but that doesn't happen in a vacuum. The players didn't pick the team, players didn't pick the formation, the players are carrying out your instructions. So to a certain degree, that the reason that you get paid to be the manager is because you take overall responsibility. And I just don't think he does. And to turn that into a question, Blair, last week, Barry Robson in the paper said that the Ayr United game was a loss in isolation, I think was the quote, or a game in isolation. Can you have 2 games in isolation?
Oh, we're on 3 or 4 in isolation at this point, I think. I actually think you've been a bit kind to him, saying that he's a poor communicator. Because to me, a poor communicator is somebody who has something to say but can't quite get that across, can't quite get across what they want to say. I think Barry Robson is either stupid or he thinks we're stupid.
Wow. Okay.
Because honestly, at this point, I don't think he wants to tell us anything, which is fine. That's his job and it's his prerogative. But I don't think he has in any way, shape, or form set out in a way to. I don't even think it's placate, but it's like to give us anything. I genuinely, I think there's an arrogance in there. There's an insecurity. I don't know what it is, but there's something fundamentally bad about his take on what he needs to do as manager. Because honestly, the stuff he's coming out with in his interview, and I said already, like, this is why I don't listen to managers' interviews, because, I mean, fundamentally, what he does on the training pitch and what he does with the players matters more. But when that's not working either, you kind of go, well, what's the story? And telling us that they're going to train harder and they're a really good, honest bunch of boys, honestly, raffle. I'm not interested. Like you say, take a little bit of accountability. He can't do it every week. He can't come out 3 weeks in the bounce and go, I got that wrong. Because third week in, you go, going to stop getting it wrong. So to an extent, I get that. He can't come out every week and take all the blame. And I don't actually think he probably deserves the blame personally every week. There will be weeks where he's like, I had this game plan and they did not execute it. Like, I told them to do X, Y, Z. They didn't do X, Y, Z. Which is kind of where I think he got to last week. I think that was the message he was trying to give, is I had this plan, they didn't do it, and this is on them. Which, fair enough, that'll happen. There will be games where that happens. But there then also has to be games where you go, yeah, they didn't quite do what I wanted them to do, but, I mean, let's be honest, what I was trying to do wasn't going to work. I just feel like he's got to a point where I don't honestly think he knows how to fix it. And it's a really sad place to be. Yeah. But you said it earlier on. Folk that are on Twitter right now, by the way, given it that I miss Ian Murray, away in Raffle, we were in exactly the same position towards the end of Ian Murray.
No, I don't agree with that.
Well, no, I don't mean the same position in that sense, but I mean in terms of having a manager who didn't look like he knew how to sort the problem.
Right, okay. Yes, I agree with you.
The difference is that Ian Murray was honest about it. And to be fair, we hammered him for that. And then Barry Robson's coming in and not being honest about it.
Because it cost him his job.
To an extent, there was an element of confirmation bias in that.
Yeah, probably.
We never hammered Ian Murray as hard as we just have hammered Barry Robson this afternoon.
No.
I say this afternoon. We started this morning. It's now the sun's gone down outside.
It's Tuesday now, I think, isn't it?
Christ, we'll hit 2 hours a day, by the way.
We'll hit 2 hours. I've still got points to make. The point I was going to make there was, yes, I know what you mean. So that was the thing with Ian Murray. He was quite openly in his interview coming out. He said that was his interview at Airdrie was, someone's not working and I don't know what it is. And maybe he paid for that honesty. Maybe there's not maybe you can't win. If you can't win on the pitch, you can't win with interviews. You're already snooker. It doesn't matter what you say. There probably is an element of truth in that. But I would kind of argue that there are a few differences between the situation with Ian Murray. One was that he was coming off the back of a summer. And the case that was made by, Andy Barrowman, primarily, was that we'd had the friendlies with the League Cup group and that the football club were prepared to use that as a body of evidence. Whereas I think the general view was probably not that. General view was probably he kind of should have had at least a couple more league games to kind of try and work it out effectively. The other thing was Ian Murray had a greater body of evidence on his side, or a greater, maybe not body of evidence, but like a greater amount of goodwill from the support, if not from the board. Credit in the bank, exactly. Sorry, that's the phrase I was looking for. Because the thing with Friday, the big contrast, and this is when I disagree with you, I was jumping ahead, was supporter sentiment.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was at that game at Airdrie, and nobody was delighted because we were very bad. We played very, very poorly, created nothing. But
it was just another game against Airdrie and Reece McCabe.
Exactly. I think we all walked out of that game going, that was pish. That was absolutely dreadful. Can I do that again next week, Ian? And then we never got a next week, Ian, because he was sacked.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, if there are children listening, now is the time to plug their ears. That chorus of Robson get to fuck on Friday. I was saying this yesterday. I think that must be the first time since 2018 under Barry Smith that's been a popular sentiment from a Rovers support. I don't doubt that there have been individuals who've shouted it, and all the managers we've had it at various points. But I was almost taken by surprise by my own reaction as much as anything, because, as I'm sure anybody who's listened to more than 2 episodes of this will be aware, like, I'm fairly kind of happy, clappy, fairly, willing to give people a lot of rope as much as anything. Try and always be on the kind of side of giving people time. But when that first chant went up on Friday, my immediate reaction wasn't like, that's a bit soon. I was kind of like, yeah, maybe I do agree with that, actually.
Yeah.
And that felt like the average reaction. Again, I'm sure there were some people who were like, it's too soon. There absolutely will be people who think that.
But it almost caught you by surprise, right? How you felt.
Yeah.
Because that's how I was. I was like, hang on. Oh, no, actually, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Because, as I say, 2 weeks ago, I would have said, at minimum, he's 4 weeks away. Like, we could get beat 5-0 on the trot, 4 weeks running, and we'll get to that point. And instead, we're a fortnight in, we've lost 2 games 2-0. But it was like, I don't necessarily, like, I don't think we need to do like a round table, put your hand up, who's Robson in, who's Robson out. Like, it's not as binary as that. But at the same time, I'm surprised by how far along that spectrum I am, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Murray, everyone was shocked when he was sacked. Even folk who were maybe not happy with things, everyone, when we heard the news on that Sunday morning, we were all like, what the hell? And if we'd heard news yesterday morning that Robson had been sacked, I don't think anyone would have been shocked. Apart from the usual BBC pundits, oh my God, I can't believe they've sacked him, pish. Apart from Michael Stewart, who obviously is still raging at us for sacking his pally and Murray anyway. But I think that it's kind of like you said, even as recently as Friday night, I was probably saying, I don't think I'm quite Robson out yet, but I don't know why. It's that whole, it still feels a wee bit soon, but I don't see how he can turn it around. So if it's, but I think since then I've maybe changed. I'm maybe further down the line over the weekend as I've stewed on it.
I'm sort of, again, I don't think I reflected on the fact that, like, how I felt when I heard the chants even coming through the TV. Like, you could hear it that clearly, but it was more to the fact that I almost feel like because I was quite pro Barry Robson to come into the club to begin with, mainly because the other names on the list were utter shit. Like, it was like there was one or two I was mildly interested in, and one of them was Barry Robson. Purely on the fact that I thought he got Aberdeen changed at the time. But we are actually seeing what one of the Aberdeen fans that I know quite well has said. This is what's going to happen. And I think Robbie mentioned it in the group chat. Somebody mentioned they were speaking to an Aberdeen fan the other day, and they said the exact same thing that I'd heard from an Aberdeen fan. And it's what we're watching just now. And so I was like, but to begin with, I do think that Robson deserves the credit of how last season went, because he came in and his job was safety and make sure that it's like that we're not really in anywhere near danger. And he managed to do that. He made us solid at the back, hard to beat, and that's what we needed. We now, in a new season, needed something completely different, and it seems to, week by week, been getting worse and worse. And as we said, the high press has disappeared completely, which is the one thing that actually seemed to be one of his blueprint with his game, is a high press, is what he's been asking. And it almost looked like that's the reason he signed Paul McMullen, and now he's not even playing. So then it's like, well, what's going on now? But I still, despite the us just going for him here, I think I'm willing to give him these next two home games. And I know that there's probably going to be Rovers fans saying that's just nonsense. I'm willing to give him the Partick and the Morton game. And if nothing changes or we get beat in both of them, I just think he has to go then where it's like, what's that, 5 or 6 defeats in a row? And if we fail to score or whatever and we're playing the same way, then he's clearly showing that he's not changing it, and he's not going to change it if this is how it's continuing. But if he changes against Partick or Morton and we're actually starting to look a little bit better, then you start to think, right, he's maybe learning a little bit here. But I at the same time, I don't have a full-on defence to say, if he did get fired on Tuesday, well, yeah, but like I just think the fact that I was so after Barry Robson to begin with, I feel like I need to be the one that's like, right, well,
Cameron, coming for you.
Definitely your fault. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
one or two more games. I'm willing to. At the same time, I don't think we're right now in like the state we were in last season in terms of this time last year and where we are in the league. Now we could end up there if this keeps going, but that's why I'm saying I think 2 games getting to basically the 1st of November. If it's not changed then you've still got plenty of time to sort it out, and you've got time to then sort out a manager before January, and he's got a January window to potentially fix it.
I'm not sure he'll get the 2, to be honest.
No.
Well,
I think another defeat to 0 on Saturday and a poor performance. The noise that's going to be coming out of that South Stand will be tremendous. The board are obviously already aware of what's going on. I think another defeat to 0 on Saturday would be the final nail in the coffin. I'm basing no inside knowledge of the board or anything, but
I wouldn't be surprised. I just personally, I would give them 2 more games. If the 2 games are the exact same, then there is no leg to stand on there.
Where is there any case to be made that we are overreacting? If you strip some of the emotion out of it, and you look at the league table, and you look at some of the results we have had this season, we beat Morton away, beat Ayr away.
Yep.
Can you make a case that we've all just kind of jumped off the deep end?
Yeah. I genuinely think you can. I'm with you. I'm off the deep end completely. I'm just, like drowning in it. But yeah, I mean, because I said it in the group chat the other day, like the Morton game, we wouldn't have won that last season. He's won a derby at home. He's won against Ayr away from home. He was narrowly beaten by Partick Thistle away from home, which was, and by the body of evidence we've seen, was not the worst result actually in terms of the performance was there at least to get a point. We kind of shot ourselves in the foot a little bit. So there's an element of bad luck, but then you get, you make your own luck and whatever. I'm actually going to completely break with tradition and admit that I've been wrong all along. and actually wrong all along on a point that you made, Duncan, really early on about the importance of doing interviews. You're going to really like this because you were actually right completely. So the reason that when I say that we're in the same position as we were under Ian Murray, I actually genuinely think we're in a very similar position where basically we've got a team who are not performing, who are looking incapable of scoring goals, and a manager who doesn't look like he knows how to fix it. Now, actually, we're probably slightly better off, which goes back to your overreaction thing, because we're still at least getting shots on target. You've got to remember under Ian Murray, there was about 3 or 4 games on the bounce where we literally didn't even register a shot on target.
Shots, yeah.
No shots at all. Like, that was a regular thing for a while. That's not there. So like, yeah, do you know what I mean? A punch in the face is better than a kick in the nuts. But the communication thing, actually, I didn't think it mattered to me as much as it matters. But Ian Murray basically had not just the goodwill of that season, he was also quite well liked, and he was quite he spoke well. And I always remember his very, very first interview. So I think it's enough time's gone now. I can to tell the actual truth behind this. But we played up at Cove, and we were rotten. And we were sat in the car coming home, and we picked that team apart. And Ian Murray gave his interview, and he gave the exact same interview. Now, Karen McCartney, who was the CEO at the time, had a go at Wraith TV and said that interview should never have made air, should never have come out. He should never have been put in that position. You should never have asked him those questions. And it was complete nonsense, because actually what he did was he got every fan on side, because we all went, yeah, he actually gets this. He's actually seeing the same thing we're seeing. And he built on
like
that,
he
and he kept
enjoyed chatting to Davey.
Totally. But he kept going with that. And so what happened was he got a bit shit, and fans were willing to give him the credit and give him the time because they were on his side. Mm-hmm. And Barry Robson's never done that. He's never curried favour with anybody, really. His results have. I was actually all for him coming up until 4 or 5 weeks ago. Performances weren't always great, but we were hard to beat. We weren't conceding goals. Clean sheets were there. We just need to get, that first goal, and Arbroath was the perfect example. You get the goal, 2 or 3 come off after it. Brilliant. And then you go, but when it's wrong, when it's bad, you need the fans to give you a bit of breathing space. And he's done absolutely hee-haw to make that happen. He's put absolutely zero effort into making that happen. He keeps saying the fans have been great with me since I arrived. I don't know how.
I don't think they have.
They've been slagging him off sitting around me anyway for months. So I don't know if it's just, like I said earlier on, I don't know whether he is genuinely stupid or he thinks we are, and he thinks we'll just swallow everything that he has to say.
Just before you start, Duncan, I'm going to have to shoot off. I'd set myself just over 2 hours for this today, thinking that would be plenty of time. Unfortunately, I now have something to do, so I'll have to catch the rest of this on the evening. But I'm actually looking forward to listening back to this.
We'll wrap up eventually.
People who think you mentioned about an overreaction. If there's an overreaction, you've got a 2-hour overreaction to listen to.
And yes, I have a funny feeling you might hit the 2.5 hour mark. I reckon. So I've probably still got a short dog. I'll still have a short dog walk's worth to listen to in the morning, I think. So I'm looking forward to that. But anyway, I'll catch you later.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Well, we'll try and make a final point of this and get away. No, it's actually, I disagree. I don't think it has to be a binary between either he's stupid or he thinks we're stupid. I genuinely think he's just bad at it. And maybe that sounds harsh, but not everybody needs to be good at everything. And you shouldn't have to be good at interviews. You shouldn't have to be a good talker or a good speaker or whatever. But it will make your life a hell of a lot easier if you can do.
Yeah.
Because this is, I think, now we have a football problem. But basically since he came in, Barry Robson has had a PR problem.
Big time.
And maybe that's unfair, but ultimately, to take your example and expand on it a little bit, if you had Barry Robson and Ian Murray, two parallel universes, where they each played 18 games and they went identically. You know, they won 4, drew 4 and lost 10. Whatever it was, maybe that doesn't add up to what I said 10 seconds ago. Identical results, identical performances. With the way that Ian Murray interviews alone as the only difference.
Yeah, that's true.
We'd feel better about it. We'd be in a better place. We'd be kinder to him. The people in the stand would be shouting and bawling less and less loudly than they would be for Barry Robson, for the simple fact that he doesn't interview well. And I don't think it's like malicious. I don't think it's like, oh, I'm not going to tell these nuggets anything because they wouldn't understand me anyway. And clearly he's had a long enough career in football that he knows more about it than you or I ever will. But this is what I say, I think he's a bad communicator. I don't think he can get his ideas across to us. Now that's, as I say, very different to do it on a training pitch. But like it or not, it does matter. Like, presumably...
5 weeks ago, I'd be rolling my eyes right now and telling you you're full of nonsense.
Think of the number of guys who have an incredible reputation in football, but who have only ever been like assistant managers or like that kind of backroom job. And you wonder how much of that is because either through preference or skill, they can't be a front man. They can't be a public face. I don't know. I'm straying out our lane now if we hadn't done already. But like maybe that's what the future holds for Barry Robson. Because I have to tell you, if he can't walk this back, and I find it very difficult to see how he can, I don't see where he manages again. I think he's going to have to go and get a job where he's not doing interviews, basically. And maybe that'll suit him. Maybe that is what he's better suited to. But right, are we prepared to leave that there? We have done 2 hours. Anything either of you want to add to that? No. Right, excellent. Cool. Right, we will call it there.
Oh, man, I hate football. I hate it.
Yeah. A tough weekend. All in. But a new week... tonight. Well, a new week dawns tomorrow, I suppose. We'll be back on a Wednesday or Thursday, I suppose. I was going to say with bright, kind of cheery faces, but probably not, because you'll probably find that it'll be at least 1 or 2 different people who will just have to have all this stuff pent up to kind of vent that. So you'll get Robbie and Greg and whoever else will come in and greet and moan for 2 hours as well. So look forward to that. Thank you sincerely to everybody who has stuck with us for 2 hours. Hopefully there's a bit of kind of shared sentiment there, and we've not just talked complete nonsense for that entire time. We will speak to you later in the week. Thank you. Goodbye.